Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Entrepreneurs in Small Rooms Drinking Coffee, where we talk candidly with early and mid-stage entrepreneurs about the details of starting a tech company. Today we've got Michael of Organics Live. Hi, Michael.
Good morning.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks so much for having me.
And waking up.
No problem.
You want to tell everybody what Organics Live is all about?
Well, Organics Live is an organic grocery delivery company. We have customers come to us for local, sustainably produced food and groceries. And we have a system that allows us to nearly eliminate inventory and more directly connects eaters with producers and allows them to access fresher food for far less than retail often.
So what's interesting about you guys, and it's I think unique in the tech startup world too, is that you have a franchisor or franchisee model.
We do, yeah.
So explain, I mean, I think people are sort of generally familiar with it, but you have a very specific sort of instantiation of it. It's very hyper-local in a sense. So how does it work for you guys?
Well, it's an extension of the licensing model, really, which we considered coming into the business. We knew early on that we wanted to build something in this space that would allow us to effectively build a business in a box, where we could work as a community of business owners to build an enterprise that had some significant social value. And we weren't exactly sure what the model would look like. We made the decision to go down the franchising road for a number of reasons, and it was largely related to the way that we wanted to represent the brand in the field and the types of conversations that we wanted the business owners around us to be having.
Right.
And our model really is, as you say, hyper-local. We work on a 35,000 household territory basis, which means a city like Toronto is broken into 50-plus territories. So it allows us to maintain a presence in the marketplace that always feels small. And so while we have a number of centralized functions that are a benefit to the entire business community, you are always neighbors with the business owner, with the individual who services you at the end of the day.
So in this particular space especially, I think there's a desire to sort of see the person who's growing the food, or at least, like have a direct relationship. I mean, the whole point is to know where the food comes from, I guess.
Right, absolutely.
So that's why you want to know the face of the person who's... Do you actually see the face of the person who's delivering your food? Or
we do, yeah. I mean, in as many cases as possible. There's always great emphasis placed on seeing the customer in as many cases as humanly possible.
So so I'm a customer, I sign up on Organics Live, and I schedule weekly deliveries or bi-weekly or something like that?
Both, yeah. You would schedule either weekly or bi-weekly.
It's fresh.
Or semi-weekly.
Exactly.
Depending on which side of the weekly fence you sit on.
And then you schedule a time, the doorbell rings, and there's a box?
That's it, yeah. Hopefully there's a person there. The box is in the hands of a human being.
Yes.
So we do try to coordinate with customers' schedules to the greatest degree possible. And those opportunities to see the customer face-to-face are very important. The momentum in the food space is to know your farmer. And if you can't know your farmer, you should know your grocer. So,
right.
We have the opportunity to build relationships with our customers that are really unique. We are lucky enough to have the opportunity to visit them at home, and we communicate with them a number of times a week, and in a number of different formats. And over time, we have the opportunity to develop very neighborly relationships, and that's different than the large grocery experience.
Totally. Which seems to be growing. Like it seems to be more and more impersonal and you know what I mean? Like it's a supermarket. It's not even a supermarket. It's a department store. Like Walmart has their grocery section.
Entirely.
Now that in Canada at least, Loblaws bought Shoppers. So now it's like a drugstore and a grocery store and also chocolates.
What's interesting about Loblaws is that if you go into any of the stores that have been recently redesigned, they're being made to look and feel like farmers markets.
Yeah.
And that really speaks to the momentum in the marketplace. There's a real demand for some intimacy again around our food. So many of the processes have been sold off to factories, more or less, and we've lost touch with where the food comes from and how it's produced. And there's a real demand in the marketplace to step beyond that. If you can't get to the farmer's market, you're not growing your food yourself, and you don't actually know the farmer, we feel like Organics Live and food delivery, organic and clean food delivery companies in general, are a really great alternative, a comfortable bridge that offers convenience and the opportunity to be really close to the source of the food.
So it makes sense that like when you kind of thought of doing this model, you realized, okay, well, I personally can't go to door if I want my face like delivering all the groceries. So you had to come up with a model where people would do it. And how did you land on the franchise model versus just hiring a bunch of people or whatever?
Well, I guess our vision for scale, and we did deliver for the longest time. We were running all parts of the business, and it was including delivery and fulfillment, and we very humble roots. We would pack and deliver the boxes on our own. We were managing all the customer service functions, so there was really no part of the company that we weren't touching personally. And though we had assumptions about what those experiences would feel like, we really did quickly come to understand that they were critical to the functioning of the business, and that not only were they important parts from a logistical perspective, but that was really that was the essence of the business. You come to understand the importance of the service when you actually get out and deliver a box, and you have the opportunity to have a family greet you at the door with a dog, and you get the opportunity to have a few-minute conversation about what's in the box and about food in general, and you talk to them about the sources of the food, and then hand over a box that is going to feed the family for the next couple of days.
So that's really interesting. You kind of are operating in the what's generally considered to be the right way to start a startup these days, which is don't just come up with an idea, build a bunch of technology around it. It's go out, do customer validation yourself, talk to customers, see. So is there an example of something where you were like, oh, totally, I can totally just drop it on their porch and walk away, or something where you learned by actually talking to like the family with the dog, but that was an assumption that was totally toppled over? Can you think of something where you're like, oh?
Yeah, for sure. Well, there's a fairly long list of them.
Yeah, there's some big aha moments where you're like, I need to do this now. We couldn't have, if you built it without doing the customer validation, you would have been screwed.
Sure. Well, I think one important clarification for us was the degree to which the business would build itself. We always understood that it was probably a business that would be built around conversation, and the degree to which that's been validated, the degree to which it's true that in finding opportunities for conversation, we successfully build the business, I think was a bit of a surprise. We knew that would be that the emphasis would be in those activities, but I think the degree to which that was true was for sure a surprise. And then undoubtedly, I think some of the, as you know, delivery, some of the sensitivities around the process of delivery and the importance of actually handing food to the customer became pretty quickly apparent to us. And customers are also really eager to participate in the process. Yeah. Even in getting boxes back to us, as a matter of fact. So really, yeah. I mean, we have. I think we have an audience that keeps an eye on those themes of sustainability, and so we've known that those components of the business would be really important. And it's very much in line with who we are personally. So we're able to bring a lot of that to the business, but it's been, I guess it's been a bit of a surprise to see how much of that's been validated in our...
So there's a lot to unpack there. So I guess for those just tuning in, this is Entrepreneurs in Small Rooms Drinking Coffee. I'm your host, Rob Kennedy, and we're being hosted by the folks at the working group today. And we're with Michael of Organics Live. So just kind of backing up one quick step, the etymology of how you got to where you are is interesting too. I think you were saying before that you didn't just stop working somewhere and start this business. You actually had a going concern, and you're like, aha. So explain how you made the transition into this business.
Sure. So I was working with my co-founder, Mark Rigaud, and we were running, for the better part of 2 years, a boutique digital marketing shop, consultancy. And we both were spending an awful lot of time working with clients in the franchising space. We're working with a large national franchisor with a footprint across North America, and gave us the opportunity to get really close to the relationships that exist and some of the tensions that exist between franchisor and franchisee. And it was a fascinating dynamic. We came in and we were representing franchisees, so we would actually pitch a suite of marketing services to the franchisee, which was counter to the way that most marketing services have been delivered in that particular business. A lot of it was top down. It would be a corporate appointment of an agency, and then the mandates would be
thou shalt use these signs, thou shalt talk this way.
Sure, and I mean, we not to suggest that we were able to sidestep that at all, but the thinking was and strategy was largely dictated by corporate, and then handed down in a one size fits all sort of package.
Yeah.
And and then obviously the agency's being paid by the corporate entity.
Right.
So they have, their interests are clearly aligned with making sure that corporate's got a smile on its face and not necessarily there to advocate for franchisees. So in getting close to those relationships, it was really interesting for us to see, first of all, the power of the franchise model, but also to get a firsthand sense of some of the sensitivities and tensions that exist in those relationships. Simultaneously, we were at home, my family was we were subscribers to a similar service, and I had friends who'd been working in the organic grocery delivery space, and it just we signed up with a company that was new in the city, and we had the opportunity to watch them grow, and over the course of the better part of 2 years, seeing the ways that they changed their packaging and the ways that they would adapt their delivery process. And it, over time, became much more convenient for us, and the system evolved to a place where it was far easier to work with, and it really just it piqued my interest because it just seemed like.
So it existed, and you're like, I can do it better.
Sure, exactly.
And
well, simultaneously, a lot of the work I was doing with Mark was focused around finding efficiencies in business process. And,
right.
And the world of digital marketing is largely based in automation. So you're always trying to find a tool to have one person do the work of 10.
Yes.
And in the digital marketing space specifically, there's a lot of repetition. A lot of those tasks benefit from those.
Right.
The implementation of a smart set of tools. So we'd become really dependent on quick Google searches to solve complex problems.
Right.
And we both of us being close to technology for the duration of our careers have come to appreciate that if it's not a Google search away, it's a short sprint away.
Yeah.
As something that can be developed in-house.
So sorry to interrupt, but so what was interesting is you guys had a couple of big honking clients that were sort of keeping you going.
Yeah, the light's on for sure.
Right, and then you're like, there's this problem. I think it interests me, and I've been keeping an eye on the space, and I think I can solve it better. So I think you said to me before, you pitched your partner, Mark, like you're like, hey, we should do this, and I think eventually you got buy-in.
Well, yeah, there was some reluctance to take on another project,
right? Which is not paying necessarily,
for sure.
Obviously, at least it's a risk. And then, so you tried it, I think you said, but you ran this alongside your agency for a while.
We did, yeah. Well, the decision. So the way I pitched it was, let's just take it on as another client.
Right.
Yeah, I said there's an awful lot of what this business needs that we can do, and we can do a really good job of it. So if we can take our understanding of sort of automation of business processes and smart application of tools and the general development process, and we can layer that over what is a largely inefficient business at present, we can solve a lot of those problems. So we should take a run at it.
So you're like, oh, it'll totally run itself. It's a client, right? Right? It's easy because we control it. But as we were saying before, like a good chunk of people who've come on the show, and also in my experience generally, is every services company in the world wants to become a product or software as a service company to scale. How did you manage to have a client who's paying you checks and a client, in air quotes for those who are not watching, who does not necessarily pay the bills and actually get something off the ground? Because in my experience, the guy waving the money is where you follow your focus.
Well, we have an interesting model in that it's largely infrastructure dependent, but we're incredibly lean. Important consideration for us is always around inventory. So we knew we would get into the space in a way that didn't require us to carry inventory. And it would allow us to do a bunch of really interesting things, including getting product to the end consumer for less than what they're paying at retail. That made it accessible, and we really treated that client, air quotes,
yes,
like a pro bono client. You fund it with the proceeds.
But don't they get
from the work you're doing elsewhere.
Yes, but don't they get like short shrift usually? Usually, especially in my experience in the agency space, is there's always a fire to put out.
There's always a fire, absolutely.
So, how do you say, screw that fire? There's this thing on Friday at 4. I said on Friday. I don't know. How do you manage that?
Divide and conquer. I mean, that's the benefit of having a smart partner.
Right.
Someone that you can rely on. You're able to divide the work and know that there are no balls being dropped, and you can both take your respective projects and run hard at them without having to look over your shoulder.
So in that time, you were doing the door-to-door manual delivery to learn the business.
Every component of the business. We've been our own buyers. We've we've managed and executed deliveries and packed boxes, and there's really no part of the business that we haven't touched.
That's super fascinating. How did you then say? At what point was there a catalyst that said, "Okay, this is a thing. We've got it enough that we can stop with fire our clients, I suppose, and focus on this 100%." Was there a metric you were looking for? Was there revenue that was being generated that you're like, this is the magic number? Or how did you make that decision?
Well, as I mentioned earlier on, we knew that we wanted to get into a space where we were business in a boxing this business. And what that meant for us was, okay, well, let's prove out that we can run a unit of what we anticipate this business to look like under the licensing or franchising model. And we knew what we needed to achieve in a single year, and appreciating that we were also building the infrastructure that would carry the business. We knew that if we could get to that place in 12 months, that there was a model there that could be packaged off and sold in the franchise marketplace. And so we, while building the business and doing all of the other things we needed to do forward-looking, to say what's going to support this business in 24 months.
Yes.
We managed to exceed all of those first-year goals.
So basically, was there a moment when you're like, now is the time to fire our clients and focus on this? Or was it like, okay, I accidentally sold 3 franchisees, so we better, start? Or...
Well, we ran, so the franchise preparation process is another story altogether.
Yeah.
And one worth touching on briefly if we have the time. Yeah. Though the process of the first year was largely about, as I say, proving out the viability of the model on the basis of functioning in a single territory. Can we, as a team of 2, drive this business to the place where we need it to be? And then can we take that and all of the things we know about the business universally and teach other folks to do the exact same thing?
So, so
the answer to those questions was yes. And at that point, we had a customer count that was sustaining a good part of the business, and that was achieved in the course of a year. And in proving out that model, we were able to really tap our family and friends networks for financing and a lot of uncomfortable phone calls, and we've managed to get to the place where we're at today. And once you get into the franchising space, as you say, you have a virtual inventory, and that really starts to add rocket fuel to the mix at a very important time, right? I mean, that's when all of the infrastructure comes under real pressure.
Right.
So you start to have other business owners who are dependent on all of the tools that you've built.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and knowing that and building and fortifying ahead of that was a good process.
Ooh, there's a lot of good things to unpack from what you just said. So for those just tuning in, this is Entrepreneurs in Small Rooms Drinking Coffee. I'm Rob Kennedy, and we're talking to Michael of Organics Live.
Speaking of which, I meant to earlier on, I have a gift for you.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. It's down here in my...
I was going to say, if it's organic, I hope it's been refrigerated.
Ooh. Yeah, so as we're entrepreneurs in this small room drinking coffee, I've brought you an Organics Live
that's
coffee
awesome. Thank
mug.
you very much.
I'm going to, in the name of general sustainability, suggest that we take the coffee out of our
crappy
throwaway
fake paper
coffee cups,
and pour them into
our
a real
reusable Organics Live ceramic
Maybe I should just use
mugs.
this going forward and not electrocute myself.
It's not a bad idea.
If you're not watching this on video, you can see that I'm pouring liquid over all of my electronics. And I haven't died yet. Thank you very much. That's awesome.
You're welcome.
And it's a gigantic mug.
Early mornings.
Perfect. Yeah,
early mornings in the food business.
So going back to your, so much to talk about. So you proved out your business model. You glossed over a part that you probably don't want to talk about, but we'll talk about it anyway. You said, okay, we start the franchise model, and then you had to get some money together. Why did you get money? Why you're like, I need to go to friends and family to get money? What did you think that money would be used for?
Well, it's the development of the infrastructure.
Right.
Yeah, we knew that that was where we identified the opportunity early on, was in efficiencies that would be created by smart applications of technology.
Right.
And those things, as you and everyone listening to the show knows, don't pay for themselves. Those are that's where the rubber meets the road.
Right.
And knowing that we were making commitments to a whole bunch of folks who would be coming in as new business owners, and knowing that we would quickly need to be able to find a place where we could sustain and properly service a growing community of folks who had the expectations of business owners as it relates to core functions of their operation. We knew that we would need a really robust system to support that.
So had you sold some franchisees and you're like, shit, I need to build stuff now?
No,
or were you anticipating before, as you were selling, you're like, shit, I need to build stuff now?
We knew pretty early on. We had some did some testing and knew that the offer would meet a warm reception when we actually came to market with the franchise opportunity. We knew that we were one of the only folks offering franchised businesses in the organic space. We knew that specifically in the organic grocery delivery space on the continent, we're one of very few companies offering that opportunity. And just in any of the shows and in the Canadian marketplace specifically, there was just a total absence of anyone knocking on that particular door. Mm-hmm. And having proven out the numbers in the first year and proving for ourselves that the unit worked, we knew we could go to market with a strong case. So I alluded earlier to the complexity of getting franchise ready, as they say. Mm-hmm. And through that process, you really come to understand that in Canada specifically, there's an incredible onus placed on the franchisor. Mm. It's one of the few places in corporate law where liability pierces the corporate veil and is assigned to all directors. Interesting. So anyone who's party to the franchise agreement as a director is personally liable. And that liability extends to any of the damages, not any of the damages related to breach. So not just an opportunity for a franchisee to come back and reclaim franchise fees, but all losses associated with the breach.
Really?
So it can be ruinous.
Yeah.
And that is, it's done really great things for the franchise industry in Canada, because what it prevents is folks coming in with a half-baked idea and no ability to support it once they start selling.
Yeah.
And so we really did invest very early on and heavily in the infrastructure and quite frankly in the staff and the team building that we knew we would need to support this business.
So did you finance it, like what mechanism did you use, like convertible debt with your family and friends?
Yeah,
is that
precisely.
How you did it?
Yeah, convertible notes all over the place.
And if you don't mind saying, how much money do you have to raise to get it going?
How much have we had to raise?
Well, I guess, have you had multiple raises, quote unquote, of money? Or
sure. Well, I mean, we're also in the habit of going just slightly before we think we're going to need it.
Right.
So that we're not making panicked phone calls, but that we're also not we're not stressing the network unnecessarily, and that we're not putting ourselves into a place where there's any sense of complacency because of a reliance on borrowed money. Once we had the model proven and once we knew we were ready to go to market, it also changes the dynamic. As a franchisor, it's not, you don't really have to do any mental gymnastics to figure out how you become pretty quickly self-financing.
Right. Yeah. So the first round was some number of dollars to get the infrastructure built, and that lasted you how long?
Well, it was a really incremental run at our development process.
Right.
And the first version of Organics Live was, we jokingly say, very much held together with duct tape.
Yeah.
It was absolutely bootstrapped, and we just, there was no part of it that wasn't an absolute MVP. And so we were very much in proving mode. And around, I guess, the end of our first year, we started looking very seriously at what the next version of that system would look like. So that required a fresh round of investment. And we were also very close to being ready to start selling franchises. So we had a pretty clear line on how we would continue to fund that development.
So you raised money a second time?
We did.
And it's same convertible notes?
Yes.
and have those. So for those who don't know, like you, what you do is you lend money. You say, I'm going to invest in your company, and the company technically owes you the money back at some interest rate. And then, but if the company can convert that into equity, as opposed to, go ahead.
Sure, yeah, at the company's option.
At the company's option.
Or if they fail to pay back, when the note reaches maturity, then often it'll just convert automatically.
Right. Have you hit that point where any of those things have converted, or?
We've satisfied all of our debt obligations
cool.
to date, so
That's
we've
really
not
cool.
had any of those tip.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So you've built out you've built out this technology stack. You've started bringing on franchisees. They apply. They say, "Dude, I want to own a small piece of the city." And you're in Toronto only at the moment, right?
We're in Toronto, Kitchener-Waterloo, Cambridge, Guelph, and we're up in Barrie.
Wow. Okay.
We're in Markham, Mississauga, Oakville. We service the vast majority of the GTA. We're up in Vaughan, Aurora, King City area, and Guelph as of this week.
Amazing.
Our newest franchisee is signed on to launch operations in Guelph, and that should be happening within the next 8 weeks.
So it's for those who don't know Ontario pretty well. You're hitting the more populous areas of the large province.
Sure. Yeah. Yep.
So you're getting most people.
We're looking at A and B markets, and I think we're, with the exception of probably Ottawa at this point, and London, and there are some talk about getting London off the ground early in the new year. So with the exception of probably those two cities, we've got activity on the ground in most A and B markets now. So
you've proven out your franchisee model. Mm-hmm. You're getting people to sign up. You're dealing with the logistics of having ever more people sign up and more customers for them. What are your existential problems today? Like now you've proven out the basic case, mm-hmm. and now you're growing. How is that different than when you started, and what are you scratching your head about right now?
Well, we continue to introduce new features to the marketplace, and every time you alter the process your customers have become accustomed to, you tend to create an influx of customer service inquiries. Yeah. So we always know that a tweak in one part of the business is going to have ripple effects acutely felt in another. Mm-hmm. We've done a reasonable job of predicting that, I think. So certainly with the release of our recent feature set, which includes full customization, which mm-hmm. is an industry-leading feature, and that's made available to our customers at no cost, that has undoubtedly created
customization of
a weekly box. So the standard weekly box is what we call best of season, mm-hmm. and that means that it comes with a list of products that are decided by the company on a weekly basis. So you get a different box of fruits and veggies every week or bi-weekly, and those would be 11, 13, or 15 items depending on your box size. And the way that it's worked historically is that you would have exclusions, so you can mm-hmm. tell us what you didn't want.
Right.
So we would make sure that if you had a potato allergy and you don't like a mango, that you would never see those two items in your box.
Right.
The new world is, here's the 15 items coming in your large box. You can take more of any of those 15, and you can choose from these 6 subs. So, if you want an entire box of kale, you can take 15 servings of kale. Right. And so getting our customers into a space where they're comfortable with that system, and certainly we've learned an awful lot about usability. You can do an awful lot of testing, and as everyone knows, it's not until you actually release to the masses that you get a real sense for how the system's actually going to work. So we've created a fair bit of work in both the development side of the business and certainly in the customer service side of the biz. And those two teams actually talk. They work very closely because customer service has their thumb on the pulse of all of the areas of friction with our customer base. Yeah. So we're feeling it there for sure. And then servicing the growing franchise community. I mean, it's a pretty amazing thing. The types of folks who've come to our business are just a remarkable group of entrepreneurs, and they've all come for very similar reasons. There's a general consensus that there's something wrong fundamentally, that the economic model, the way we participate economically is just off. And to varying degrees, they could articulate that to you, though it's a theme that's present with almost everyone who comes to the business. So we have a really passionate group of business builders and business owners around us and supporting us, and they're really smart folks.
Right.
So we are absolutely under the microscope, and that was part of what we loved, was that we would have the opportunity to work with this team of consultants. I mean, they're there and they watch the business like business owners.
Right.
And they're there every day.
Right.
So answering to that community is a pressure-laden exercise.
Yeah.
And it's one that we take a great amount of pride in, but it is absolutely a white knuckle ride. We are it's a full court press to continue to meet the expectations of that community, because they're just such a really passionate and smart group of people. So it's very good for us. You know, we're going to build a heck of a business because of the community we've got supporting us. That's true on a consumer basis, and it's true of the business builders that have chosen to come in and participate with us as franchisees.
So as we wind up, and for those just tuning in, I'm sorry, we're winding up. This is Entrepreneurs in Small Rooms Drinking Coffee. I'm Rob Kennedy, and we're with Michael of Organics Live. So moving forward, obviously you want to expand, and then you also have the other interesting issue from where you've got a lot of feedback from your customers. It's weird because you're sort of, when you're B2B, your customer is the other B. So even though they might be touching consumers, you're not quite B2B. You're still sort of B2C to a certain extent. I mean, you've got franchisees, but they're not totally your customers. Your customers are still the people who are buying the grocery boxes.
To a degree.
To a degree?
Yeah. I mean, we've really encouraged our team internally to think of the Organics Live operation now as an agency of sorts. We've got a really strong software product that we've de facto licensed to our franchise community for the next 10 years. And we've got a really solid group of services that are built around that to support the users of this system. So, you know, when we look at who we service, it's the franchise community. And when we look at the tools we build, those are tools that are built to allow them to go out and build businesses and to tell the stories of the food and of the food producers, and to do that successfully and to build their own local communities around those ideas.
So how do you move forward? Like, is it continue to sort of methodically roll out to different regions, or is it like big bang, it's America, yay? Or like what are your next, like, growth is now the big challenge for you, I assume? For
sure. Yeah. Very measured. Yeah. And incremental. Absolutely. Growth can be really challenging. And we seem to have found a space where there's an awful lot of demand for the business unit as a franchise model. And we're proving every day that the consumer market is absolutely ready for this type of service. So we know that going into a market and finding customers and finding folks to support the business as franchisees is not the challenge. Right? It is managing growth.
Right.
And so for those reasons, we're being very measured in the ways that we approach a new market.
So is there a metric you use to decide, market size plus proximity to farm divided by pi equals we move, or how do you...
In planning next markets?
Yeah, how do you measure the growth? Because the logical thing is like, there's 8 people from New York City have come to me, so maybe that's a bad example, but...
Well, 2 big considerations. We'll say 3 big considerations, and you've touched on one of them, and that is being led by the market to an extent. So the site is always open, and the first step in the sign-up process is postal or zip code. So we have a really accurate sense of where the majority of the traffic is coming from, and where the expressions of interest are coming from. So that's helpful. And then certainly, maybe you should come and work for us. Now, the second one as well is the proximity to food. That's we're in the fresh food business, so we want to make sure that we're in a place that is directly and reliably connected to those supply lines. Ontario is a really wonderful market to launch in, because we are blessed to be in the breadbasket of the country here, and we have so much local produce around us. I mean, we're very seasonally affected, but it's so we would look for conditions, I think, that are quite similar to Toronto.
Yeah, cool. Well, so much more to talk about, but I'm afraid we're out of time.
Well, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. So this was Entrepreneurs in Small Rooms Drinking Coffee. I'm Rob Kennedy. We were speaking with Michael of Organics Live. And thanks to the working group for hosting us. And thanks to Nick Kuhn for producing the show. And stay tuned next week for a very, very early show, 8 o'clock next Thursday, Eastern Standard Time. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.